big business trip came back with COVID.
Oh, okay.
After all this time.
Yeah, I know, it's like you have unicorn blood, it's like, they call it losing your unicorn blood or something like that. Yeah, we got it over the summer, like in August.
But her symptoms severe.
You know,
Are her symptoms severe?
They were moderate. It's been more than 10 days now, so she's much better. But given that she was boosted up to the latest, it hit pretty strong.
yeah. I wonder if there was a different variant.
Who
coming from
knows?
South America.
She was in Argentina, then Brazil, then Chile.
Okay.
So who knows?
Yeah,
Different part of the world.
but you were okay, you didn't get it.
I didn't get it, and for the first 3 days that she was back, I was out of town
Oh,
at
okay.
a conference.
Right.
And then I've been social distancing in my own house since then, which is not fun.
No, it's not.
It's
We-
not fun.
When we got it was in August, we were in Cape Cod, our place is super small there.
Yeah.
I got it first, so I was like in the hammock in the back, like I was like sleeping out in a tent, but then they all got it anyway. Because, you know, if the mom gets it, forget it.
Dylan, you can start? Yeah. Not a dull moment.
Yes.
This nigun is based on a verse from Psalm 118, which can be found on page 266. Hodu ladonai ki tov. Give thanks to Adonai, for he is good, for forever is his mercy. Hide, 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 hide,
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And happy Thanksgiving weekend to everyone. I hope that you had the opportunity to celebrate Thanksgiving with family and or friends, either on Thursday or at some time during this holiday weekend. To continue in the spirit of Thanksgiving, besides the Nigun, which we just heard, we'll also sing now from the 92nd Psalm on page 22, which says, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, it is good to give thanks to God. We continue with a prayer of gratitude that we don't often recite. It's particularly appropriate, I think, on this Shabbat and Thanksgiving weekend. On page 8, I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life. For our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, page 28, please rise. On page 31, this is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai
Hama'ariv Aravim.
We cross over from the world around us to the world within us. Ahavat Olam, page 32.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael,
Together in the Shema and V'ahavta.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
Baruch Shem Kevod Maluto
Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavcha u'b'kol nafshecha u'b'kol meodecha v'hayu hadarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'ham b'shimtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derek u'v'shokbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam lehot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'kshavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת
think one thing that we can agree on as Americans is gratitude for our basic freedom, or at least it should be that way. And in that spirit, on page 39, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. The song of freedom that our ancestors sang is the Mi Chamocha, page 40.
Enjoy this joyous melody. Mi Chamocha, Baili Matonai, Mi Chamocha, Nedar Vakodesh, Nora Tehilot, O Seifele, Nora Tehilot, O Seifele. מלכותך רב בניך בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים זלי אנו ואמרו אדוני מלכי עולם נער ידדדדדדד ידדדדדדד ידדדדדד וגלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. The next page, Hashkivin.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ושמור צאתנו ברוך אתה אדוני הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
The middle of page 44, the people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. That's exactly what we're doing right now. V'shamru.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. V'shamru לעשות את השבת לתורתם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לתורתם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לתורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לתורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לתורתם ברית עולם.
As you know, the next prayer, the Amidah prayer, links our faith to the faith of our ancestors. And growing up, we said, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It was not until the 1970s, 50 years ago, that we added God of Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. I'm very thankful that we now include the matriarchs and have now for 50 years, almost 50 years, and that at the same time we have a different view of our ancestors, but also that corresponded with the ordination of the first female rabbis and cantors. So, in that spirit of thanks, as we rise now for the Amidah prayer, starts on page 46.
מקיים הכל ברחמים רבים, סומק נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך מל גבורות, ומדום מלך, מלך מנית ומקיים, ומצמיח ישועה, בנאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקיים הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יללו כסלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. Also in the spirit of thanks on page 59, let's read this together. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of the soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, u'lecha na'eh lehodot. That last Hebrew word, lehodot, means to give thanks, and it's the same root of the Hebrew expression todah, thank you. You hear Israelis say all the time, todah rabah, thank you very much. Shalom Rav ends this section of prayer on page 60.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki ata melech adon lekol hashalom. Ki ata melech adon lekol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov b'nei kol levarech et amcha Yisrael b'kol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
Now at the end of the Amidah, our thoughts turn to those of our loved ones in need of healing, be this a healing of body or healing of soul. And I have 6 names to read this evening. That's a lot for our small congregation. Sending healing prayers especially this evening to Norm Rosen, Tal Carlin, Tony DeMarco, Rachel Stern, Barbara Schwartz, and Andy Schwartz. We add to that list those that you are thinking about as we join together in the healing prayer.
Source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us sing, those in need of healing with refuah shlema, renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
We're deep into the book of Genesis now in the annual cycle of the reading of the Torah, and one thing that strikes you when you read the epic stories of Genesis that are epic yet intimate at the same time, stories of families, which is why they're so compelling. There's not one generation in the stories of Genesis that are free from family conflict, including this week between siblings and parents and siblings. Don't ask. There's not one generation that's free of family conflict, but every parashat, every story also has examples of love, of family love in them as well, including this week. And so as we pause now, in the spirit of thanks, we give thanks for the critical but elusive idea of shalom bayit, of peace in the home, peace in the family. We pause.
Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu
few years ago, I was asking one of my B'nai Mitzvah students, what is your favorite holiday? And they answered, Thanksgiving.
Oh.
I said, oh, I meant to ask, what is your favorite Jewish holiday? But I said, as long as you said that, tell me why Thanksgiving. And I remember the answer. They said, well, it's the only time that the Jewish and non-Jewish parts of my family all come together to celebrate. And there was something to that, because it's a civic holiday that people of all faiths or no faith do join together in celebrating, very often with families. Thanksgiving has grown to be a tremendously important holiday in this country, and most of what we're taught about it didn't happen. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble here, but let's just go over a little bit of the history because it's instructive. Plymouth Rock. The Pilgrims arrived in 1620. Yes? Have you seen the so-called Plymouth Rock? I've seen it. It's kind of down below, encased in concrete, but there it is. And it's true that a group of people did arrive. Pioneers arrived in 1620 on the Mayflower. They were not pilgrims, however, because that term didn't exist until the 1880s. What did they call themselves? Separatists. That was their own name. Separatist. And they were zealot separatists from all other Protestant sects of Christianity, and they came with a very Puritan-like ethic. Were they seeking religious freedom? In some ways, yes, but religious freedom on their terms only. And those first separatists wanted a separate theocratic state set up in the New World. 1 year later, did they celebrate a harvest festival? They did. They were happy at a reasonably successful harvest festival. Were there Indians? Were there Native Americans who came? There may have been, but we don't have a historical record of that, nor do we know if there was turkey. And there certainly was not pie, because the ingredients for pie had not arrived to the world yet. But did they call it Thanksgiving? They didn't use the term, and that meal, that celebratory gathering, was not called the first Thanksgiving in America until the 1830s. That's 200 years later. And it took another 3 decades for Thanksgiving to even be designated as an official holiday. There were many days of Thanksgiving all through the colonial period, especially during the Revolutionary War. But the date it was declared a national holiday was 1863. And did you know that it was right after an epic event connected with none other than President Abraham Lincoln? So let me read to you a little bit about that context from a historian. The idea of a regular and national Thanksgiving Day was actually the work of one woman. How many of you knew that? Sarah Josepha Hale had already ensured her everlasting fame by composing, anybody? Mary Had a Little Lamb. She was already famous for that when she decided to make a campaign for a national Thanksgiving holiday. Beginning in 1846, Mrs. Hale wrote letters to every president asking for an annual official day of thanks to unite the nation. Her magazine articles spread the campaign across the country, and every president until Lincoln said no. But President Abraham Lincoln finally took up the idea. It was October 1863, just after the Battle of Gettysburg, when Mr. Lincoln declared a national day of Thanksgiving. What was his primary motive? Of course, to celebrate the Union's victory at Gettysburg and Vicksburg. So his proclamation said it was, quote, fit and proper that the country should give thanks for success in a war that would eventually mean an increase of freedom, in his words. As the historian Judge Glock writes, the timing of the first Thanksgiving is important. Earlier in the year, Mr. Lincoln had issued the Emancipation Proclamation and had turned the Civil War into a battle against slavery. Exactly 1 week before the first Thanksgiving, the first official Thanksgiving, the president delivered that famous speech to commemorate the soldiers who had died in the war. He goes on to say that Sarah Josepha Hale, whose name you will now remember for those two reasons, was extremely pleased because she was a strong abolitionist that had also campaigned for the abolition of slavery. So she really lays claim to fame in two remarkable ways. So given the political context of the first official Thanksgiving, listen to this next paragraph from the historian. After the war, white Southerners remained deeply suspicious of the, quote, Yankee abolitionist holiday. When early Reconstruction era governors proclaimed Thanksgiving Day in the South, white people ignored it, even while black people and Republicans feasted. Republicans were the abolitionist party back then, lahavdil, as we say, to distinguish from today. It took decades before Thanksgiving became a truly national holiday. It also took decades before most of the country layered on the tradition of the Pilgrims and the Indians as part of that holiday. That came in at the end of the 19th century. So what do we make of all these interesting facts about Thanksgiving? When we study the origins, we see an overtly politically connected holiday that then gets layered in with various levels of myth. It doesn't mean that it's wrong, but we may in fact lose the sense that Thanksgiving, or the original Thanksgiving, was a celebration of hard-fought, hard-won freedom. And when we study the history of Thanksgiving, we realize that that battle is not fully over. That full freedom for all Americans is still a work in progress. I'm happy, I'm glad that Americans join in a celebration of Thanksgiving. And it's right and proper to give thanks for so many things. But part of the act of giving thanks, if we understand the origin of Thanksgiving, is that by doing so, it doesn't mean we should cover over the things for which we're not thankful for, the challenges that have besieged us since the founding of this country till today. As the students in my confirmation class this year well know, I recently read 3/4 of a very long book, but what a experience it was. The name of the book, The 1619 Project. I had read a whole lot about it when it first came out in a few initial installments in the New York Times. I saw it right on the shelf in the Leonia Library as a new acquisition, and I said, do I want to take this out? And I'm really glad I did, because even though I'm a student of history, or I think I am, it was an eye-opening experience to read some of the lessons, the essays on the centrality of slavery in the founding of our nation and the continuing legacy of slavery in every generation, even after the Civil War. So we're having some very powerful debates in confirmation class this year, and this initial part of the year, on the legacy of racism in our country, including the debate over CRT, critical race theory, the debate over affirmative action, and the debate about how we remember the past and what do we do with monuments to Confederate soldiers and even monuments to our founding fathers. I'll just end with this note in connection to that. I was recently in St. Louis for JPS Business Convention, and we had the opportunity to go down to the Missouri Historical Society Museum. They opened it up specially on a Monday for our group of people. You walk in the entrance to that museum, and there's a magnificent and huge statue of Thomas Jefferson. Matter of fact, it was the first monument to Thomas Jefferson, is older than the Jefferson Memorial in Washington. It's really impressive, and Thomas Jefferson, of course, is one of the great founders of this country. But I was wondering, in light of all the controversies, is there anything that is done to give the context of the not so great aspects of Jefferson and the founders who were slaveholders? And sure enough, as you walk around the monument, there are now 3 panels, and each of the panels speaks about the full legacy of Thomas Jefferson, the good and the bad. The director of the museum was there. She told me it was quite the uphill battle to get those placards installed around the statue, but she was very glad, and I was very glad. We can be deeply thankful for the great impulses in American society, even as we continue to join in the struggle to fully understand our past and its legacy. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Emily and Reina are sponsoring the Oneg this evening, so I would like to ask them to come forward to open the Ark for the Aleinu. It's a non-speaking role. We turn to the bottom of page 282, and please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת כלולם יוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושל יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומי, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום להשב אותה לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים הארץ ועל הארץ מתחתנו ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Thank you.
As we remain standing, our thoughts turn to those of our loved ones no longer with us. On this Shabbat, we recall in love and reverence the Yortzeit, the anniversary of the blessing of Marcia Gray, mother of Susan Gray, and Irene Hughes, aunt of Susan Gray, Tessie Brown, mother of Cheryl Alicchio, May Setlow, aunt of Hilary Kelbick, Morton Buxbaum, father of Peter Buxbaum, Rose Waxman, mother of Ron Waxman, Sylvia Schnell, sister of Cheryl Alicchio. And on this Shabbat, our hearts go out to those families who lost loved ones just in the last week in Colorado Springs, in Virginia, both Chesapeake, Virginia, the University of Virginia, and in Jerusalem, Israel. For all those close to our hearts, for all those for whom there may be no one to say Kaddish, we join in the Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi, be'alma divra chiruteh, yamlich malchuteh, b'hayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabbi mevorach le'olam olamei hamaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudeshat b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Da'amirat me'ama v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shamayim. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imroma, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and comfort to all who are bereaved. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. First announcement. Someone left a very nice pair of glasses here last Shabbat, so maybe somebody watching from home will recognize them or realize now that they're not here, and we will hold them in a safe place. Tomorrow morning, there is Torah study. It takes place at 10 o'clock a.m., as usual in the social hall, but given the holiday weekend, there is no religious school on Sunday. That will resume next week. Once again, thank you to Emily and Raina for the oneg this evening. And we will end on a special note that the Cantor will say a few words about the connection to Thanksgiving.
How many Thanksgiving songs do you know? For me, this is a holiday that is not filled with music, but there is a piece of music that I learned in high school called The Promise of Living by Aaron Copland.
Ooh.
And I would like to sing it for you today.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.